Neil Gaiman. If you want to claim to know anything about modern literature, then you've got to know Neil Gaiman. He is, without question, the best new author to emerge. I say in recent years, but you know, it took me a while to discover him, and that's not always the case. One of his big classics is something he wrote with Terry Pratchett, as Terry Pratchett says, before he was Neil Gaiman. And this is a book that people absolutely adore. He's been asked to, he says one of his great joys in life is to sign copies that have obviously been read nearly to death and dropped in the bathtub and have ketchup stains on them or whatnot. And this was initially published in, I really should look these things up before I start recording, shouldn't I? 1990, and it came out in hardcover. But again, you know, nobody really knew who he was. He's also recently been essentially nominated for an Academy Award with Coraline, and maybe you've seen the movie Stardust, which is also him. This is a great book, and that's mainly what I want to talk about, are the stories with books. Is that this is a book, sort of imagine if, I mean, we all know the story of The Omen, where they transplanted the Antichrist with somebody's real son. Well, imagine if they mixed that up, and a regular kid was put with the family that was supposed to train him to be evil, and the real Antichrist was given to a normal family. What would happen? Well, that's the story here, and I'll tell you, it's hilarious, but it's also, you know, pretty insightful, because as it turns out, you know, the Antichrist is a decent kid, you know. He's got friends, and he really just, you know, wants to make the world a better place, is like his strong urge. Of course, he's got the infernal powers of the devil at his command, and this is, you know, the Riders of the Apocalypse appear as a motorcycle gang, and it's just fantastic. Now, my favorite book by Neil Gaiman is called Neverwhere, and this is the story about a guy who, in just trying to help out a woman in distress, winds up getting transported and sucked into this magical world that exists basically in London's underground. And he, you know, I mean, he's got a map of like the underground stations and how they correlate to the various, you know, magical realms. And this is one of the most beautifully told stories I've ever heard. You know, I'm not going to be in the habit of giving anything away when I talk about books, but, you know, to an extent, really, I couldn't tell it to you the way Neil Gaiman could tell it to you, so even if I am giving away stuff, I wouldn't worry about it. But there's just some beautiful lines in here. One of my favorites is that there is a price to be paid for all good places, and a price that all good places need to pay. And he combines, Neil Gaiman is known for combining really a thoroughly postmodern style of literature with the most ancient stories ever told. The stories that humanity has been telling ourselves to explain things since humanity first started telling stories. And a great example of that is American Gods, and also another book called Anansi Boys. Am I saying that right? Yeah, Anansi Boys, which is, you know, the Anansi was an African spider god, or sort of a folklore, and a guy realizes that he's actually the son of this spider god. In American Gods, a sort of guy just getting out of prison hooks up with another guy on a plane that it just so turns out, you know, happens to be one of the ancient Norse gods, Odin, and he becomes his personal assistant in trying to the gods are all sort of dying because nobody believes in them anymore, and a lot of them have come to America, and they're trying to figure out how to get, Americans to believe in them. So it all culminates in this great war battle in the end. Now, one thing that Neil Gaiman is particularly known for is something called the Sandman series, which is, as you can see, a graphic novel. It's just beautifully illustrated. I don't even know what you're seeing. It's one of the best illustrated graphic novels ever, and it's definitely one of the best stories ever told in the graphic novel format. I think there's a dozen of these or so. It has a somewhat sad ending, but the thing that's amazing about this series is that it won the Hugo or the Nebula, and the other science fiction authors were so incensed that a graphic novel had won this award that they changed the rules so that it would never happen again. But it's an amazingly well told story. I was into comic books as a kid and graphic novels, and there's really very few of them that survive into kind of an adult mindset where you're still happy to be reading them and enthralled by the storytelling and the artwork and whatnot. And the Sandman series is absolutely one of those. So if you can pick this up, you should. As someone said of it, if this isn't great literature, then what the hell is? So, Neil Gaiman has become sort of a phenom nowadays. There's several movies made from his work. I mentioned Coraline was just nominated for an Academy Award. There's Stardust, which is a pretty good movie. But there's also, Neil Gaiman is extremely good about blogging. He has his own blog at journal.neilgaiman.com, which it has a link to him reading the first chapter of his new book. I mean, it's literally like 45 minutes long, and that is a treasure. How often do you hear about authors doing that? So you'll see at the bottom of this page links to buy Neil Gaiman books. Get any of them. They're all good. But if I was to give you a specific recommendation, it would be for Neverwhere. This is the book that will just leave you. Leave you sort of with happy tears at the end. It's again a combination of a thoroughly modern style with the oldest stories humanity has been telling itself, and it resonates on a deep level when you get into it. So check those out.